Good evening, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. This is Rich again, back with your third and final video blog of the night for July 8th, 2014. It's about 8 p.m. in Billerica, Massachusetts. It's going to be another humid night, and we might get some thunder showers again, but these will be isolated, not severe, hopefully. But you never can tell with this weather. Some sports news to report. Germany crushed Brazil in the semifinals in the World Cup by a score of 7-1 to advance to the championship game. And also there's been rumors that the Red Sox might be trading Jake Peavy away to a National League team, most likely the St. Louis Cardinals. But Peavy says he wants to stay in Boston for the rest of the season and see how it goes, because he's slated to be a free agent at the end of the year. We'll see what happens. The Red Sox ain't going anywhere, so I bet there'll be sellers at the trade deadline. And one of the first persons to go will be Peavy, I think. Maybe they trade Clay Buttercoat, or also they might trade John Lester, because both of them are slated to be free agents at the end of the year. And they probably want to get some value in return for them, because once they become free agents, they only get a draft pick as compensation, not prospects. So anyway, my third and final video blog of the night is about one of the most famous TV stations in Boston, Massachusetts, wlvi TV, Channel 56 in Boston. Channel 56 in Boston was one of the most famous independent television stations in the United States, behind like WSBK TV 38 in Boston and WWOR in New York and WPIX in New York. wlvi Channel 56 started in 1953 as under the call letters WATO, but it only lasted a couple of years because they were not carried on many television stations, because televisions back in the 50s only had channels from 2 to 13, and they didn't have a converter for the UHF stations, and whatever they had for converters for UF stations for the televisions cost thousands of dollars. And WATO was actually affiliated with the ABC television network and the now defunct Dumont television network, but they got no ratings, and in 1956 WATO bit the dust. And it took several years later, in 1966, around Christmas time, that a new television station was formed, WKBG Channel 56, which was owned by Kaiser Broadcasting 50%, and the other 50% was owned by the Boston Globe. And WKBG's carried, for the first few years, Boston Celtics games, and also they carried Boston Bruins games the first year they were on the air. This was the last year of the original 6, and they had to make a decision which games they really wanted to carry, and they carried the Celtics games continued because the Celtics were a winning team back then and the Bruins were not. Also, like, WKBG carried other shows like old sitcoms, movies, and several network programming that Channel 4, Channel 5, and Channel 7 preempted because of syndicated programming during the daytime. So they had some like NBC shows, CBS shows, and ABC shows go on WLVI TV. WKBG TV 56. Also, like, WKBG was also was one of the first TV stations in the country to carry Star Trek reruns when they went off the air from NBC back in 1969. They also carried a lot of National Geographic specials. Around 1972, they carried 2 years of the World Hockey Association's New England Whalers games on. Like, they carried about 45 of their games. Half of them were at Boston Garden, so they carried that schedule. In May of 1974, Kaiser Broadcasting and Boston Globe ended their partnership for the television station, and they sold it to Field Communications, and they rebranded it WLVI TV. And LVI in Roman numerals is 56. And then they started to carry a lot of reruns of old ABC sitcoms. It seemed like all of the rerun sitcoms of ABC sitcoms popped up on WLVI Channel 56. There's so many to name: The Brady Bunch, That Girl, Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Taxi, Benson, Who's the Boss, Three's Company, Full House, Head of the Class, Growing Pains. The list went on and on. And also, they carried 8.5 hours of children's programming, especially in the 80s. They carried it from 6 a.m. in the morning to 10 in the morning, and they took a 3-hour break to show reruns of old sitcoms, and they went back from 1 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. That's 8.5 hours, and that's amazing considering these days most broadcast channels are only required to carry 3 hours of like educational children's programming a week. And also, like, on the weekends, WLVI TV 56 carried a creature feature double feature, which was a very scary movies and stuff like that. Also, from like 1969 to 1989, on Saturday mornings, Channel 56 carried WWE Wrestling. First it was like WWE Championship Wrestling, and it was rebranded the Superstars of Wrestling in 1986 to 1989. And WLVI Channel 56 was also Boston's movie station, and they would always carry movies at 8 o'clock at night, some big time movies. And on the weekend schedules, they would carry non-stop movies from like noontime to 6 p.m. on weekends, and also Saturdays and Sundays at 8 p.m. and also overnight hours they carried a lot of movies. And also from 1985 through 1990 they carried Boston Celtics road games. Gil Santos and Bob Cousy was carrying the games. And during the 90s, that Channel 56 kind of like got converted over to like WB 56, and they carried Warner Brothers programming in prime time, kind of eliminating the movies from the weekdays. And also they just eventually stopped branding it as Channel 56 or WLVI. They kind of branded it as Boston's WB. And Channel 56 WLVI in 1984 started a news division. It was headlined by Jack Hines, who worked for many years before for WCVB Channel 5, and he was the main anchor for the news programming for so many years. Eventually, other news personalities who appeared on Channel 56 were Karen Marinella, Jeff Bond, Frank Malico, Joe Shortsleeve, Uma Parmeligio, and a whole host of others. And also some of the weather people who appeared on Channel 56 News was Mike Wonkum. He was the major one. And then the sports department was like Bill O'Connell, the Great Gamir, Mike Rattay, Frank Malico, and a couple of others. And like by the year like 2001, like WLVI was kind of turning into like basically showing mainly talk shows during the morning hours and the afternoon hours, eliminating all the kids programming. You saw endless talk shows like Jenny Jones and Maury Povich and Jerry Springer and Steve Wilkos and a whole host of others. And it changed. Also, this time it was Tribune Company owned Channel 56 in Boston, and they owned it from 1994 through 2006. And they were putting it up to auction, up for sale, because of they weren't making money in Boston for WLVI Channel 56, and they had so many suitors like Fox Television and Disney Television and NBC Universal, but they sold it to Sunbeam Company around 2006, around September, and which owns Channel 7 WHDH, and WHDH shut down the station, and then they kind of moved the television station from Morrissey Boulevard in Dorchester to Booth Finch Place, their home studios and government center, and now the station's basically an automated station. They only carry the news for like WHDH carries the news at 10 for WLVI TV 656. It was kind of sad that WLVI TV 56 had it end in 2006 as their own station, but you know, they weren't making money towards the end. Tribune wasn't making money, and the saddest thing, when they had the final newscast for WLVI in December 2006, like that, Jack Connor said a bad thing, fell well, that he wishes that WLVI was still, that somebody local should have stepped up to the plate and bought the station, keep it the way it is. And he said it was a sad way for an end of a television station one week before Christmas, where a lot of people lost their jobs and the Boston television market couldn't absorb them. It was very sad to see WLVI TV 56 go as their own station, but it's business. Television is a business, and I think it's sad to see WLVI not as their own station anymore. But things changed, and one of the famous voiceovers of WLVI Channel 56 back in the day was Dale Dorman, a popular DJ in Boston, and people would always call him Uncle Dale, and he was real good doing the voiceovers. So they're missed all the time. Well, this is Rich signing off for the night. I will be back tomorrow with at least 3 to 6 more blogs. Depends what I'll talk about. You don't know what I'll be saying these things, because I'm going to say what's on my mind. And if there's any special shout-outs you will request or any ideas, private message me and I'll take care of it. I will not talk about personal stuff or politics or anything that I don't want to talk about. That wouldn't be good for these blogs. Okay? And see you tomorrow. Goodbye, Facebook friends and YouTube followers.